probably the most anticipated Red River Rivalry game we've had in probably the last 10 seasons is coming this weekend. And Coach Sarkesian has a little bit of a concern. Maybe not big for some, but it's telling us that this game is going to be a lot better than you anticipate. Let's talk about some of the comments that Steve Sarkisian made, the head coach of the Texas Longhorns, about Coach Brent Venables. We'll dive into that and some of the things that could be concerning and as to why, because we've got some data to follow up on. But before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thanks for pulling up to the channel. So the Texas Longhorns have started the season off 5-0, done things pretty well, beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa in probably the biggest game to start this season, and now they have to face a ranked Oklahoma team. Last year, of course, Texas got the best of Oklahoma, winning 49-0 in Red River as the Sooners were bringing in their first-year coach. And Sark has a good understanding of that. And so in an article with Sports Illustrated, he made a few comments around the Sooners as well as Brent Venables and actually provided some praise, which tells me that he has a little bit of a concern. In his words, he's got his work cut out for him in preparation for BV. And so let's dive into those comments and why we can definitely see that. The big comment that jumped out in this article to me, and the one thing you all should keep in mind in this, is that Sarkisian has history with Brent Venables. He's seen him for the last roughly 15 years in some capacity or not. He had the big victory for USC against Oklahoma in the national championship. That Pete Carroll defense was prepared for Oklahoma, and Brent Venables and his defense just was not clicking on all cylinders in that game. Now, the thing about that is Sarkisian was on that staff and he was learning under the tutelage of Lane Kiffins and as well as Pete Carroll and that staff. And so as he took over for USC, you started to see the evolution of what Sarkisian is made of. Last season, Sark was able to get the best of the Sooners after an abysmal breakdown the season before where Caleb Williams came back from a 28-7 deficit and won the game. Now, that was Sark's first season in Texas, and so he, of course, understood that, yeah, I got to right this ship. And so he's been trying to do that as much as possible, spending more time in the trenches, and especially when it comes to recruiting in the transfer portal. And so they're trying to build something there, and I guess build Texas to be back, which everyone keeps saying. But when Sarkisian was asked about Brent Venables, and this was what he said, and this is why I can show you basically where the relationship and everything between Venables and Sarkisian is how far it's gone. He stated this: Coach Venables, he's been doing it too long at too high of a level to think they weren't going to get that thing fixed, Sarkisian said during his weekly press conference on Monday. I told you last year that he would. Now, we've got more on that, but this is an interesting statement by him because after a 49-0 victory, you figure he'd take victory laps. But no, he pointed out, yeah, he's got to make some changes, similar to what I did. I started my career 5-7 at Texas, and so Sarkisian had to figure out how to get things right on that ship. Well, he understood that Brent Venables is doing the same, and I think the thing that fascinated me the most about that comment is that when Sarkisian was an offensive coordinator at Alabama, going up against Brent Venables as defensive coordinator at Clemson, he met him in the national championship. Brent Venables and squad came out victorious. And even a couple years after, Brent Venables' defense really shut down the Alabama offense right when Sarkisian exited stage right. And so you start to see that Sark knows Brent Venables is going to figure this out. He's going to put this bad boy together. He's going to make the magic happen for the Sooners. And so he goes on in his presser talking about it. The things that's keeping him up, most likely, the things that he's got to work out and figure out, which is probably eliminating some sleep from this man, is that this defense is different just about every time you see it on the field. The iterations are always complex and changing to where it's hard to focus because you don't know which one you're going to get. And he mentioned this in his presser. He said this: the multiplicity of what they do. Brent has got a lot of defense and he carries it all. So you go into a game, you're not really sure what you're going to get. You turn on the SMU game, it's one style. You turn on the game against Iowa State, something different, so on and so forth. So there's a lot to prepare for, which jumped out to me that Sark, as an offensive mind, knows that the challenge he has the most of is figuring out ways to be creative with his defense to beat what Brent Venables has done this year compared to what he did last. Now, I understand last year's game, Texas fans want to take that victory lap. You deserve it. I'm not even mad at you. I'm glad you can have something to celebrate because Oklahoma has been the team owning Texas the last 10 years. If you go back and add last seasons over this 10-year period, we just go to 10 years from last year all the way up. There's still a 7-3 record for the Sooners? Then you go back another year and it's still 7-3? So we're seeing where Texas fans are really trying to ride that high and hopefully keep that going. And Sark continues. He says this. Historically with Brent, he always has that kind of playmaker linebacker in his system that he asks a lot of, which we're talking about Danny Stutsman. He's a really good blitzer. He can pressure the quarterback. He's really good in coverage and zone coverage of keeping his eyes on the quarterback and create turnovers. And he's a good tackler. So Sarkesian laid out the plan that Texas really has in trying to beat Oklahoma this week. They've got to find a way to get Danny Stutsman out of this game, get Danny Stutsman out of the way, make sure that he's on the opposite side of the field. So from that point, what Oklahoma's going to have to do is one of these young pups are going to have to jump up and make it happen. We need to make sure that Sarkisian is constantly thinking and constantly having to figure things out. Confusion and everything between him and Quinn Ewers. We've got to make sure that that's happening. And right now, in the mind of Sarkisian, it looks like that's the thing that he's concerned about. He goes on about Danny Stutsman having so I think for all of that, it takes football IQ, and you can definitely tell he's got a high football IQ over there with what they do. And so Stutsman's going to be that key player. This is the one player that's probably going to be the main focus for what Texas is going to do. They've got to find a way to keep Stutsman out of the game. And be honest, I think that's going to be a challenge. Brent Venables does a really good job of switching things up. And as Sarkisian said in his own words, the multiplicity of what he's doing is built to make it difficult for opposing coaches to really figure them out. Now, if there's anything that these Sooners need to do, and I'll finish up with this, the way that they can walk into this game and make sure that they do something that's going to shock the world, the discipline is the most important thing here, and that's what we've seen out of this team. We've seen them make adjustments and win games because they decided to, you know what, let's lock this bad boy down and make it happen. That is something that Oklahoma is going to do in this game. I anticipate this being a battle, something the most anticipated one in the last 10 years, one that we've had. This has playoff implications on both sides of the ball. And to be absolutely honest, I anticipate this not being the only matchup between these two by the end of the season. As long as both continue this trajectory, as long as both of these teams continue to battle and win these games, I sense we're going to see them match up again. And that second game will definitely determine who's going to make it to the playoffs and who's not. And if things work out properly, the way things are looking like in the college football world today, there may be even a chance that a one-loss Texas and a one-loss Oklahoma still makes the playoffs because they're showing that they can ball out regardless of who they're playing. So I ask you all this. Hop in the comments and let me know. You think Sarkisian staying up at night thinking about ways to get around Brent Venables' defense? Do you think that we are stressing him enough? He's got his work cut out. I would love to hear from you all. If you've made it this far, you like the content, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Love to have you join this college football family. We're talking a lot of OU football. We mix in Colorado and college football in general. And so YouTube says check out one of these videos. I highly recommend it because I curated it for you. Continue to watch things as we prepare for the Red River. We'll talk soon. Peace.